Hello, Anne-Sybill. Welcome here. It's a pleasure to have you today. First of all, how are you? I know that you're traveling a lot between New York and Paris, so where are you at the moment?
I'm currently in Paris, but I spent a few days in New York and in Canada these past 2 weeks, and I'm coming back to New York in 1 month. So still
Great.
between Paris and New York at the moment.
The life of a founders is always, traveling here and there to talk with people. So pretty normal. Would you like to give us an introduction of you, your background as a founder, and most of all, Formance as a startup?
Sure. So first of all, of course, thanks for having me. Maybe just as a quick intro, so my name is Anne-Sybill. I'm one of the two co-founders of Formance. We are a fintech company, a fintech startup, and we're building an open source financial infrastructure. And we started our journey with the foundation of this financial infrastructure, which is a ledger. And like, what is a ledger? It's basically a transactional database
Mhm.
to build and manage complex and sophisticated money movements with any type of financial service providers. And we built Formance now 3 years and a half ago. We were part of the summer 21 YC batch, and a lot happened so far. So happy to dig into like the beginning of a
Yeah.
story, a background with my co-founder.
Yeah, I mean that experience it's probably one of the most interesting in the market. Being part of YC is always a huge medal for every founder. So let's start from your background first. So what were you doing before to start this?
Yeah, so I came from France,
Mhm.
from a French father and a Lebanese mother. I don't have a background in engineering and tech.
Mhm.
I graduated from a French business school called HEC Paris. So I have a background basically in finance. And it's pretty interesting because I started navigated in the tech ecosystem and tech industry during my gap year.
Mhm.
I did a 3 month internship in a VC fund and then a 3 month internship in a cybersecurity startup called Cyber Angel.
Mhm.
And I started realizing that I really enjoy working on like technical and complex problems, especially at the very beginning
Mhm.
of the journey. So after HEC, I joined Luc and Emmanuel, the co-founders of Alsid, a cybersecurity startup. I was the first employee and the CEO there. And it was really interesting because we will build the company from the ground up. When I joined Alsid in 2017, we were three, and we sold the company 4 years later. And that time we were 120, 100, yeah, 20 employees, and we grew the company from zero to 10 million annual recurring revenue. It
Mhm.
was really interesting because we had to scale the company pretty quickly on several regions. So we started, of course, in France. Then we expanded the business in Asia first, in Hong Kong and Singapore, then in the UK. And after the Series A, so at that time we raised the Series A of 13 million
Mhm.
with Idea Invest at that time, now Eraseo. And after the Series A, Emmanuel, the CEO, decided to double down on the US market.
Mhm.
So it was a really good experience because at that time it was also about selling to the enterprise segment. So we signed big logos worldwide, Toyota, Barclays,
Yeah.
etc., to name a few. And it was also building, so compared to Formance, it was also building a new category, not in the fintech space, but in the cybersecurity space.
Mhm.
And now every large cybersecurity vendor has like what we call an active directory offering in their portfolio.
Yeah.
So really interesting experience.
Yeah, I think that the experience of building something from scratch and expanding that internationally like that is unavailable on the market. I mean, you get to face certain kind of challenges that you can never face in a large corporate or in
Mhm.
any other kind of corporation. So that is unavailable, also as experience, as personal experience, you know. Then how did you came up with the idea of your current startup? So were you the one with the idea, or were you know teaming
It's
up with your co-founders?
my co-founder had the idea,
Mm,
and he's the genius, the brain behind the whole project. So he has an engineering background, of course,
mm,
and he worked for 4 to 5 years in a marketplace called Selency. He
mhm,
was among the first employees at that time, and he was in charge of building and scaling the whole financial and payment infrastructure. So he started implementing Stripe. So
mm.
Stripe separate charging and transfers to
Yeah.
have a lot of flexibility between your pay and your payout. He started to also implement BNPL solutions and other PSPs. And he found out that when it comes to the financial and payment platforms to build your money flows between your pay and your payout, when you have complex and sophisticated
Mhm,
money flows, you have to build it by yourself. So he
mm,
started speaking to his peers at some scales ups and established also companies in Europe. And he found out that they all had to build their ledger, which is a core component of, again, a payment platform or
mhm,
financial infrastructure by themselves. And it's pretty
mm,
interesting because if we look at Airbnb, Uber, Square, like all these companies which started their like online payment journeys
mm,
like a few years ago, they had to build a ledger by themselves, and
mm.
they wrote some papers about the fact that they couldn't find anything on the market. And yeah, they had to build
That's pretty
by
strange.
themselves.
Also, for example, for things that are not related, companies that are not related to fintech, like for example Airbnb, so they had to
Mm.
build it on their own.
Yeah. They wrote
Wow.
several papers. I think it was between mostly 2015 and 2018. So like
Mm,
6, 7 years ago.
yeah.
And yeah, so when I met Clem, he talked about his pain point at Selency. So the marketplace where he built this ledger. We also started to have a look at these articles, and of course, we started also speaking with pretty big like marketplaces first,
Mhm.
but also fintech companies and financial institutions. And for most of them, they had to build a ledger by themselves.
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, there was a huge spot in the market, a huge missing spot in the market. Most of the time, you usually have third-party companies, you know, doing that for you. And I think that this is what you're trying to do at the moment,
Yeah.
basically. What are the main challenges in that market? You know, I've been working in the, let's say, in
Mm.
the infrastructure side of certain kind of open banking companies over time. And I think that is pretty complex to build an infrastructure that can fit
Yes.
all the needs of everyone in the market, you know, so that's one of the main challenge. But what are the challenges that are you facing right now?
Yeah, good question. The first one, because it's pretty interesting, we raised the Series A,
Hmm.
so at the end of 2024.
Mm,
Um, like the past 5 to 6 years, there were a lot of
mm,
fundraising and a lot of money poured into the fintech world and poured into like financial infrastructure providers, and we couldn't really see like an emerging new leader on this market. And I think we wanted also to capitalize on what happened these past few
mhm,
years to figure out the best approach to be able
mhm,
to replace such a critical component which was previously built in-house.
mhm,
So for us, one of the main challenge was to find the right approach to replace like
mm,
one of the most critical components of a financial infra. And to do that, being an open source company,
Hmm.
especially with a ledger under an MIT license, which is
Mm.
one of the most permissive license on the market, was critical. Because when we started speaking with established companies, who told us that they were still hesitating between building and buying.
Yeah.
And we told them, first of all, our product is open source. You can tweak
Mm.
the source code. You can keep full ownership and control over it. And you are also able to deploy it in your environment because most of our customers are like regulated businesses or handle like critical data. The combination of an open source product with several types of hosting options and the third component, which is a programmable product. A product is for the engineering team. It's not a
Mm.
product for the finance team, for the ops team. It's really low level.
Mm.
And with Formance and our ledger, you are able to build any type of forefront. There is no limitation. So that was our first and main challenge,
Mm.
uh, like facing this build or buy dilemma.
Yeah, yeah. I think that you mentioned one of the most
Mm,
challenging topic, I think, in the financial industry, that is always compliance, selling mostly the infrastructure side, everything that is around the data and personal data of the user from a financial institution perspective is always very, very tricky. And you need to have multiple approvals, you need to
mm,
go through compliances committees and everything else. So it's always very tricky to sell that kind of products. But I think that you find out a very good way to do that. Your go-to-market strategy is very, very interesting because you basically tell them, okay, we are so low level in that kind of chain that you will never have a problem, and on top of that you will also have the code for yourself. So basically you can take a look at our open source, you can have your code, you can maintain everything. So it's basically trying to lower down those kind of challenges. And you ever had any kind of problem under that point of view, or maybe some, like, security concern from the client itself on your kind of infrastructure?
yeah, good question. So, if I take a step back
Mm.
and I have a look at the very beginning of our journey at Formance, so when you build such a critical component for the
Hmm.
first 2 years, it's just impossible to sign big logos
Yeah,
because
I
for the
strongly
first two
feel that
years,
problem.
for the first 2 years, you just have to build a
Yeah.
bulletproof product. And it's basically what we did. We built a bulletproof and scalable ledger, like also to follow up what you said on like security. It was really important also since
Mm.
the very beginning to have different kinds of certifications, SOC 2, ISO, even at the very beginning of a journey,
Mm. Yeah.
because it's a no-brainer, even for a small startup when it comes to deploy such a critical component. And what was key as well here is also to make sure that we remain just a software layer. We are not a regulated business. We are not embedding payments, bank account, IBAN, etc. We are just like at the moment a ledger, which is a system of record for like every transactions to track like how much is owned by whom in real time across all your different providers. So I think one of our key success factors here was again to remain just a software provider,
Yeah. Agnostic,
but
let's say.
exactly 100% agnostic, and to build this connectivity layer around our
Mhm.
ledger to plug it with your different PSPs, Stripe, Adyen, PayPal, banking partners, for instance, Modular or Banking Circle, and just to remain this agnostic piece. And yeah, in this case, this was instrumental in building trust, especially with big logos.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
totally get that point. I mean, it's almost impossible to sell something in the first phase of those kind of project and those kind of product because basically
yeah,
the other side need to sign you also, you know, need to trust you, and you'd have no track record, no history, no
yeah.
nothing basically. So that's the most interesting part, most hard part. At least in my experience, that kind of cycle takes between, you know, 18 to 24 months in order to sign someone.
Which is
That is,
not our case
yeah.
at all. Which is not our case at all. Because when you have an open source product, so
Hmm.
in our case, our motion is pretty straightforward sales motion.
Mm,
It's a pure product-led motion.
mm,
So, for instance, a fintech squad or a backend engineers is
hmm.
looking for an open source ledger.
Okay.
He or she found out like the Formance ledger on GitHub or on thanks to our website, and it's pretty. I don't want to say it's pretty easy to build trust, but it's much easier to build trust
Mm.
amongst these types of
Because they
profiles
can verify, basically.
because
They can start
yeah,
trying. Yeah.
exactly. And fintech, and we all know that is a game of trust.
Yeah.
So when you tell your customers, hey, our product is 100% transparent, we don't hide anything. You can host it like on premise. Like it helped us shorten our sales cycle
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have comparison because we had like this approach in the very beginning, but our sales cycle are usually between, I would say, uh, 3 months, and for the longest sales cycle, up to, I would say, 12 months.
Wow, that's pretty good for an
Yeah,
infrastructure.
yeah, yeah. Because maybe to give you the big picture, so first of all, they are looking for an open source ledger.
Hmm.
So of course we worked on SEO, etc. And they either start playing with a product with a sandbox
Hmm.
or open source product, and at that time we can have their email address, or they join our Slack for our
Mm.
community. They start asking questions. They can also see that other users are playing with the product. They are not the
Hmm.
only ones. And then we start engaging with them when they fit our ACP,
Mm.
meaning that right now we decided to focus our effort on big logos. And when you reach a certain scale, we will ping you and we'll start a proper sales cycle. And in this case, of course, since we are selling a fintech and financial infrastructure, of course, at some point we have to speak with the legal team, the compliance team, which is pretty normal
Normal. Yeah.
for companies such as Formance. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that you find a very good way on how to do that. Mostly because, you know, um, trying to lower down that kind of sales cycle has always been one of the main challenges in the
Yes.
industry because you cannot wait 15, 18 months to sell something. Otherwise, your startup is gonna go broke sooner or later.
Yes.
And that was one of, you know, the main challenges. But I think it's very, very interesting. Let me go back to one of the topics that you were mentioning about getting in the batch of Y Combinator. You know, that is always been one of the most, you know, appealing program out there for startup and for founders. I would like to ask you about your experience about it, how it was, how did you apply it, you know, what you learned. How did it goes basically?
Yeah, really good question. So just to be super clear on this question, so my co-founder, so
Hmm.
Clément, he started, so at that time, the name of the company was Numari and not Formance.
Hmm.
He started Numari in April 2021, and
Hmm.
he joined YC. He was accepted when he was still alone.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. And but maybe to give you more information and insight on how today we are leveraging like Y Combinator. So first thing, and it's like pretty important for your mental wellness,
Hmm.
it's to be surrounded by other founders in the
Mm.
same journey. So if I step back, I take a step back and I have a look at maybe between like 4 or 5 founders around me with
Mm.
whom I can have like open conversations about like hiring the team, my main challenges, fundraising, etc. They are also part of the YC community.
Mhm.
And out of these, I would say 5 founders, I would say that 3 to 4 of them are European founders
Mm.
because we're all in this journey of starting our company in Europe. And at some point, we realized that if we wanted to accelerate, we will have to double down on the US market. It's exactly
Mm.
what we did at Alsid. But I would say something here. We can't really apply this to all businesses. It makes sense to Formance because we are just a software provider. We are not constrained by European regulation or
Yeah,
US regulation. So in our case, it will
it
make
has to be
sense. And
global,
again,
basically.
yeah, and a lot of European YC founders
Yeah.
also in this journey. And it's a key success factor to be able to leverage this community and not to feel alone at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah, especially again, like we were talking about that at the very beginning of the call, but
Mm.
I'm moving to the US, so I didn't know at that time if I wanted to move and it would make sense to move
Mm.
in SF or New York, but decided to move to New York. And I know that I already have some people from the
Mm.
YC community in New York or in San Francisco, and it's such a support when you are
Yeah.
moving to a new country. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical, of course, but also not just for the moving part itself, also for the kind of experience that you have building something with other people that can, which you can, talk to, or for example, compare ideas or brainstorm new
Mm,
ideas. There are a lot of things that a new founder maybe never experienced in his life, like for example, hiring or build something from scratch. Those kind of things are not easy, and having the possibility to compare that with other startups, I think it's critical. Mostly if you do that with very good startups like the one that they are usually
yeah,
in the YC Combinator. So I think that kind of experience, that kind of comparison, I would say, is critical to to move forward.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Let's go back maybe to the round. So you just closed the round. That was a very good one, to be honest. And you were mentioning before that you closed it at the end of 2024. I think that
Yes.
you did that in a kind of a good period, let's say. I think that between 2021 and end of, let's say, mid of 2023 was a very bad time to actually raise funds. We saw many startups lowering down valuation, having
Yeah.
problem to find new investors and everything else. So tell me about your experience in raising that funds in that specific moment in time. First of all, how much time did it took,
Yeah.
and how was it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, maybe to give you the big picture.
Hmm.
So, we started our journey at the end of 2021.
Mm.
We raised, of course, a seed round at that time, around like 4 million. And
Mm.
we really decided to keep a small team
Mm.
before hitting a PMF.
Mm.
And it was also clear to us with my co-founders since the very beginning that we didn't want to do a Series A without a clear PMF, a clear monetization path, especially because we're an open source company,
Yeah.
and without strong metrics and big logos. So at the end of 2023 and not 2024, we started to have an enterprise grade product.
Hmm.
It was critical in our journey. And we really started to double down on the commercialization of the product last year, in
Mm.
2024. And we multiplied our annual recurring revenue by 10
Mm.
in 11 months. And we also hit the 1 million annual recurring revenue last
Mm,
year in October. And
great.
at that time, we knew that it was the right moment because
Mm,
we had like solid foundations, so significant revenue and growth rate, big logos. It was also
mm,
really important for us, like not to have like 1 million annual recurring revenue made up of small logos
mhm.
which could churn like in the coming months,
Yeah.
but big and yeah, big companies in our pipeline. And what was critical as well to raise our Series A was, of course, to have a clear vision.
Mm,
And maybe just to come back to the PMF and why we also decided to double down on the commercialization last year, it was also pretty important for us to of course validate our thesis and vision. So modern financial applications require a new type of financial infrastructure,
mhm,
and we wanted also to validate that we could be able to build a trustable financial infrastructure
mm,
and product which could be deployed at large scale at the largest companies worldwide, and that the big logos will be willing to pay a lot for
mm,
it. And again, going back to last year, so at the end of 2024, we had everything we wanted to validate: PMF, fundamentals,
mhm.
logos, metrics, etc. And we wanted to be fast. So what I did is I just launched like a Series A process at the
Mhm.
beginning of November. And I was super clear with everyone that I wanted to move forward fast, due diligence included. I wanted to have the cash in bank by the end of the year. And that's what we
Wow.
did.
In two
Yes.
months.
So we had everything already prepared. So we had our data room prepared. We had the list of potential investors. And what was critical as well in this process was to be clear since the very beginning and to have that in mind. So we had in mind the best investors for us for
Mm,
Formance, even at the very beginning of the process. So investors who understand your market, your business, the evolution of your market, your future challenges. And
mhm.
of course, it was really important for us to have a fit on a personal level as well. And we ended up raising 21 million with PayPal Ventures and Portage. And and again, I can take yeah, I think that's the big picture. I can talk
Yeah.
about
No, I
many other
understand,
things,
but
but I'll stop here.
yeah. No, no. It's very, very interesting. I mean, I didn't knew it was just in 2 months. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. Usually it takes between 6 and 9 months, just to have everyone ready to invest and everything else. But doing all of that in 2 months is absolutely amazing. I would say you try to lower down the time to market, let's call it, as much as possible. So wow, crazy. And yeah, let's maybe take a step back from the fundraise itself, and let's talk about your vision on the market itself. So you're obviously talking from a B2B perspective. So you're selling to big banks and financial institutions for a long period of time. We saw a lot of startups mostly focusing on the B2C side. So I wanted to know your take on the fintech market itself. How do you see the market at the moment, and how do you see it going in the upcoming future? So we have all been talking about, the upcoming trends for 2025. I want to know your take on this year and on the upcoming years.
Yeah. So what you mentioned during the course of the chat regarding like the VC market in 2024. So I agree with you on the fact that the VC market and like started to 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 breathe again
Mhm,
at the end of 2024. At the beginning of 2024, it was pretty tricky, I think, to
mhm,
raise, and it's a discussion I had with like so many founders. Here, in our case, I would say that Um, when I speak with other fintech founders um, who are doing well,
Mm,
in their case and in our case as well, what is critical, again, and I'm speaking for Formance, but is to have a global play.
mm,
Because even if at some point the market was pretty complicated, I don't know, in France or in Europe, we started to have some incoming leads from, for instance, Asia or the Middle
mm,
East,
yeah.
and it helped us, like growing also the whole machine. And so having this global play I think is one of the key success factor, I would say, among like the other fintech startups and companies I'm currently seeing doing well. What is also pretty interesting here regarding the market is when we speak with customers or potential customers, a lot of them are looking for lightweight solutions.
Mm,
So, for instance, even if there are some like legacy incumbents on the market with, like on the paper, maybe the best solutions,
mm,
uh, like the discussions we have with, again, like our customers are pretty interesting regarding the fact that they're looking for, yeah, lightweight solutions, like easier way, and they're looking for easier way to deploy the product and to have it live in a few months and not in a
mm,
few years.
yeah.
It's pretty important as well. So I would say that these two components are pretty important again for
Yeah, so
customers, and that's
low
what I'm hearing.
integration, basically, low integration,
Yes,
less project, and more, let's say,
yes,
quicker go to market, basically. So they
yes.
don't want to spend years behind a
Yes,
feature,
they
basically.
want to see like quicker return on
Mm,
investment, and they also want to be able to, for instance, test a new product or new
mm,
techno quickly and not to have to go through a really long sales cycle and
yeah,
implementation project. To be able to validate, for instance, a new
yeah,
product or a new project. They want to move forward fast, and that's why they're looking for solutions such as
yeah.
Formance to
So
accelerate their go live, for instance. Yeah.
yeah, it's basically the MVP approach applied to large
Yes.
corporate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. You also said something very interesting. So you were saying that about your global approach and the kind of requests that you're receiving from the US, Asia, and everything else. So we have been talking a lot on the market about the kind of mental shift between US-based funders and European funders, and the same things about US-based investors and European investors. So,
Mhm.
given your kind of approach and your kind of global presence, but also your kind of experience in Y Combinator, do you actually see that kind of difference between US-based startup and European startup? The kind of difference between the mental
Yeah.
vision of the founders.
Um, Maybe before talking about like the mindsets as a different of mindset between US founder
Mm,
and European founder, I can give you like just some figures we saw at Formance. When we are selling a product at 100 in Europe,
hmm
we are selling a product between 200, 300 in the US, and between like 70 to 80 in Asia and in the
mm,
Middle East. So I think that these figures speak by themselves. Like,
yeah.
even if we are not based in the US at the moment, but again, I'm moving to New York. Um, Today, more than 40% of our annual recurring revenue is coming from North America, so
Mm,
the US and Canada. Even if, again, we're not currently based in the US.
yeah.
So the willingness to pay is, again, for a product. I'm only speaking like
But your
based
specific
on the,
product, of
yeah,
course. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, the ACVs are much higher
hmm
because since we are always compared against, again, an in-house and homegrown ledger,
hmm
they are like comparing the cost of Formance against the cost and the number of people they would have to hire to build and maintain a ledger.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Having those kind of people, mostly if they are US based, it's gonna be always much more expensive than having a solution that is built and maintained in Europe by a smaller amount of people, a smaller team, everything else. So it makes a lot of sense. You can also ask higher prices there. And you're going to be anyway cheaper than build them internally for those
Mm.
kind of companies. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but regarding the mindset, to be honest, I don't see any difference.
Mm,
At least like with the founders around me,
mm,
like we, all of them were like super bullish on our business. We just want to build like the biggest companies ever. So,
mm,
yeah, to be transparent, I don't really see some differences regarding, yeah, the mindset of US founders and European
mm.
founders, at least around me.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Yeah, but that's a good point. I mean, we are starting to, to fill up that gap that was maybe more
yeah,
present in the last, 10, 20 years. And we are starting to raise up again. I think that is a
yeah.
very good point for Europe. Maybe last couple of questions from my side. I had a question about hiring. So, how do you actually uh, think about hiring? You're a small startup still,
Mm,
even if you're growing a lot. Hiring has always been one of the most critical side of this job.
yes.
You want to have the smartest of the smartest, the brightest. How do you actually do hiring, and what are you actually looking for in a person that should work for you?
Yeah, yeah. So that's not an easy topic for sure,
Hmm. Yeah.
especially when you start hiring outside your country. So
Hmm.
again, I was born in France. I started like my career in France. So I have a pretty good network in France and the UK and Europe. But now I'm building my go-to-market team in Europe.
Hmm.
So what I'm currently doing is, first of all, to leverage my network because you already have a first filter, a first referral. And in our case, our investors are helping us a lot regarding hiring the go-to-market team in New York
Hmm.
because they have both of them, so Portage and PayPal Ventures, an office in New York.
Hmm.
So leveraging our network. I'm also doing some not cold calling, but I'm also reaching out directly
Hmm.
at some people on LinkedIn. And to be honest, I just started last week doing that, so I can't really talk now about like the return on investment. But
Yeah.
at least at Alsid, in the previous company, I hired so many people through LinkedIn.
Hmm. Yeah. It's usually a
So
good tool for cold reach out to
yes,
for hiring at least.
yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
basically hired so many people from main competitors,
Hmm.
which were at that time like really big companies listed in the Nasdaq. So, but I'll see. I could tell you in a few weeks or months. And yeah, but I completely agree with you. So right now we're working on some like of course framework for each position because yeah, for our core team and the team we hired before the Series A, um, it was also thanks to our network, but yeah, we had to hire around like 10 people, but
Hmm.
now we have to hire like more than 20 people until the end of the year. So the skills are not the same at all.
Yeah.
So we also really need to implement some framework and processes and yeah, but what is pretty useful here is that I already did the job at Alsid in the previous
Hmm.
company, building these frameworks, working with different teams to understand their needs, etc. So it's yeah, I don't want to say that it's easy, but it's easier when you
Yeah.
already did it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's say you're used to it to
yeah,
build it from scratch, and that always
yeah.
helps. Yeah. Maybe last question from my side. Um, Given the fact that you are working in this environment and you have a lot of experience in the fintech field, what is one of the most interesting trend that you're seeing in the market right now? Maybe not even in your specific area of expertise, but something that you're seeing in the fintech market at the moment that you think is very interesting and is going to have a huge impact on the market,
Yeah.
maybe in the upcoming years or even this year.
Yeah. Several things. The first one is related to I would say vertical SaaS platforms and big vertical SaaS
Mm,
platforms because we all heard about like Shopify, which is like generating more than 70% of their revenues, like thanks to embedded finance.
mhm,
We spoke to many large vertical SaaS platforms these past few months, and a really interesting trend we saw is that a lot of them are looking to, of course, improve their unit economics around like payments and like embedded
mhm,
finance. And a lot of them are looking to obtain
mm,
like banking agreement and EMI license to be able to go lower in their payment and financial stack in order to improve their unit economics. And it's
mm,
a trend we started seeing like these past few months and these past 2 years, I would say. And it's pretty interesting because at the end of the day, and why we're, for instance, speaking with these kind of companies is because they are looking for the same kind of products
mm.
and infrastructures um, than like, for instance, the one used by pure players in the
Yeah.
financial space. So this is a really interesting trend we started noticing these past few months and this past 2 years. Another interesting trend, I think is it's not really new, but it's something we can really feel. Is this huge competition and this commoditization, like of PSPs. So Stripe, at the end, like PayPal's, and each time we are starting speaking with like a market leader
Mhm,
in its category. Yeah, we can really feel that there is this trend of like payment processor commoditization.
mm.
So we'll see where the market will head, but yeah, it's also a pretty interesting trend we
Yeah,
started noticing
yeah, I
recently.
totally agree about the payment trend, to be honest. I'm seeing more or less the same thing. I think that there will be a huge impact in that space, driven by mostly stable coins and
Yeah.
AI agent.
Yeah,
I think that there will be a huge kind of revolution there, let's say. And I'm very, very, curious to see what the main players will do to protect themselves and to protect their kind of position right now, you know. We saw that space being revolutionized multiple times in the
yeah,
past. And yeah, I think that we will probably see something similar in the upcoming future. But yeah, okay. Ansibil, it was a pleasure to speak with you. It was a very, very interesting
likewise.
conversation. I wish you the best for your move to New York, and
Thank
I hope
you.
we can speak
Thank you very
again
much.
soon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. You too. Bye bye.